Hello and welcome. I'm Jenny Hall for Trinity Stamps. Today I would like to share some really fun new products that are going to be available in the Trinity store. Marabu alcohol ink is very much like some of the alcohol inks you may have played with before, but it's a different brand. In comparison to another size of alcohol ink that I have in my craft stash, Marabu is a little bit of a larger bottle, has a different style cap, and a different style opening. I had a really good look at these at Creativation, and the colors really are very brilliant and bright. They work and play very well with existing products from other companies that are for alcohol coloring or alcohol inking. And it's just a lot of fun. There are even some metallic colors, and I can hear a small ball bearing up inside. And it says in the instructions to give them a good shake. Once the top is cut off, and the way they ship to you is that it's completely closed, you have to snip away the top, then I would suggest putting a finger over that opening before you shake. Ask me how I know, because I spilled it a little bit. So I'm going to use some Ranger alcohol Yupo paper. Well, I say alcohol paper, it's just Yupo paper. But you can use any kind of blending solution with these, but Marabu recommends you use their blending solution, which is called an extender. So let's start playing, and this is just my second time to play with these. They are kind of new to me, and so we're going to kind of go through this together and figure out how they work. I've got a silver metallic little jar here, and there's a lot of shine inside of this little jar. Again, it has a ball bearing, I guess because it's a metallic. And I'm just adding it in with everything else. Now, this little squeeze thing you see in my hands is something I picked up from the pharmacy. There are a lot of different options you can use. I've seen some people use a straw. I've seen some people use a larger, I think this is called a bulb. And this is an easy way that I found to move things around. I have I'm compromised with my lungs. I have asthma. And so the alcohol smell tends to get to me if I breathe it in too much. And by using this little puffer thing, then I find that I can move things around quickly enough and make sure that I'm not breathing in too much. Especially if I were to use a straw, then it would definitely get to me. There is an alcohol smell, like rubbing alcohol smell, whenever you open this up, and it's a bit strong. So I would definitely recommend using this in a ventilated area. If you can get to where you can craft close to a patio door and open the patio door, or maybe even do it outside, then especially if you have any breathing issues, then this is something that could affect you and keep you safe. So I thought about building up some colors and using some really dark colors for this first play. And one thing I can see that is very helpful is to pick the paper up and to encourage the color to move around. Once the color is dry, then I place the extender back on top of the color, and it loosens it up and can move it around. That's really cool. I believe most alcohol inks work in that way. Now, I wanted to use some more of this pearl, but for some reason it wasn't coming out of the top. And so I opened up the very top, and it turned out to where the ball bearing was stuck. The ball bearing was stuck, and it impeded the nozzle. Let's check out how regular rubbing alcohol works with the rest of these. It definitely is not the same. And this is the 91% rubbing alcohol, not the 70 something percent. I've got both of them in my house. And I noticed that this definitely, the 70 something percent kind of doesn't do anything. I believe it's probably more of a water solution. But the higher content of alcohol in the bottle, it definitely can be used with alcohol inks. It's just not the same as the extender. I guess it's the difference of something that's watered down versus something that's not watered down at all. The extender just really, really works a lot better. The colors react much more quickly with using the extender. So I wanted to kind of just play around and see what I could get. And I think that was a really fun trial. Now here's some hand sanitizer. I'm working on the Tim Holtz mat, the glass mat. And this is how I'm cleaning up after myself, is I squirt a little bit of hand sanitizer with a paper towel, and you can see that everything's just coming right up. This was a tip that I took from Tim Holtz himself during Creativation. This what he used to clean his surface was hand sanitizer, and it works like a charm. So let's try a different approach. And I love the very light, airy, ethereal look. So the first thing I did was add some alcohol to the surface of the Yupo paper, then added the color in pools. And oh, look how dreamy this looks. I'm even using my finger to kind of rub across and move. And because it's not dry, it's not going to stain the paper in one particular area. It's just so pretty. This would work really great as a background for some characters, like maybe like an outdoor scene for some farm animals or woodland creatures. Very, very pretty. So to get some of that excess fluid off, I'm just kind of dabbing on the corner of a paper towel, and that is enough to help just get some of the excess color off. And then I'm setting all of these panels aside so they can dry naturally. Let's get a rainbow. Since we're playing and experimenting, then I think it would be fun to build a rainbow. But I'm going to use just a few colors and actually let the colors mix together on the paper. For example, the blue and the yellow together should form a kind of a green. So let's see if it actually does. And I'm using my heat tool on low to blow some of those colors around just to see what different tools work and how they work. And this is going to apply a very light heat to the surface, but it is drying it. It's drying it and pushing it at the same time, which is another fun effect. If I want things to move around and have them dry a little bit, then I can always add more of this alcohol and fill in the gaps. As you can see here, I had some gaps, and then pick up the paper and move it around, and it's going to just kind of all work together. This is addicting. Working with these fun colors is something that is like me time. It's playtime. And I don't want to do this when my family is around because I don't want to expose them to the fumes of the alcohol, especially since my oldest son has asthma. But look at how fun this is. I have to say that it took, I probably would guess, about an hour of just playing and building these panels. And I had so much fun. Now you can see sometimes it gets onto the back, and that's okay. It's not going to hurt anything. Yupo paper is like a plastic paper, so it's not going to affect anything. It's totally cool. So now I'm starting out on a piece of Yupo paper that's dry. It does not have the alcohol on it first. And I thought it would be fun just to put a bunch of dots around and have some really cool ocean colors. There's a new stamp set that's coming out from one of the companies I work for that I think this background would be a perfect, it'll be a perfect scene for something. So keep a lookout for something that looks a little swampy, and you'll get to see it coming up soon. So this method that I used on this version of this panel is to first add all the colors, and I added a ton of colors, and then just drip on the extender. And you can see what happens when you drip the extender on. It forces the color to move around immediately. The alcohol doesn't work exactly the same. It is kind of in the same vein, but it doesn't work the same. So I could stop right here before I brought this little puffer in and let this react naturally, or like I'm using here with the puffer, move things around and fill in all those white spaces to where I have a completely colored background. And that's what I chose to do because I hadn't done that yet. So I wanted to have a panel that had no white spaces to where it's just completely covered. And look at how pretty. I can keep moving and adding and moving and picking up the paper, and it's so much fun to play. I had ran into a friend of mine one day, and we were talking about all the different things that we like to color with, and alcohol inks came up, and it was just like our eyes lit up. It's like, oh, alcohol inks, yes, I love them, and talking about all the different ways that we can use them. Now, I don't want to lose the blue in this piece. I want the blue to stay there. If I mix it around too much, then it's going to all be one big color pool unless I make sure that I keep that blue area intact. So that's the one danger that I can see, is that I want to have many colors, but keeping the colors separated is not something that's easy to do. So what do we do with these panels once they're dry, other than just throw a big sentiment die cut on the front and maybe a character or two? I thought it would be fun to show you what I'm going to do with the panels. So I have a stamp here from Trinity Stamps, and it's Love You Bunches. It's a very, very big floral stamp. So the first thing I did was to treat this Yupo panel with an anti-static tool. And that way the embossing powder is only going to stick to the areas that has embossing ink applied. And I've used Versamark clear sticky ink to stamp this floral image, and I'm going to apply white embossing powder. I'm going to be careful with my heat tool because I don't want the paper to warp or melt, because it's not cotton paper or fibers, it's plastic paper. So I'm going to be really careful and make sure that when I bring the heat tool over, it's already hot, and have it set on high, and then just melt areas of it at a time. And then once it's die cut, check it out. I'm going to put a gray piece of cardstock that is popped up on a card base, and then place this beautiful die cut over it, and I can just glue it directly down. And I think this would look great as just a note card. Whether a sentiment or not is placed on top, I think it's optional. It's just a really pretty note card. So I've used some liquid glue, and I'm attaching, and then to make sure that everything makes good contact, I just placed a block over it. And there's the finished card. So easy. Let's take another panel, and let's use that rainbow panel. And I'm going to grab some rectangle infinity dies from Hero Arts. I'm using 3 dies, and you'll see why in just a moment. Now, you could die cut or use your paper trimmer, but I thought it would be fun to do a different effect. kind of like frames. So if you have some frame dies that have a large space, then, like a large space in between the frame sizes, then that would work out well. Now I've got a couple of different pieces to play with. So I'm going to adhere the frame size here, and this is the same size as my card base. I'm just adhering it to the card base with liquid glue, and you can see here that it goes edge to edge. And I could stop here and put something inside of it because you can still see the rainbow. But my idea was to take and place another panel inside. So I'm going to pop this extra piece back in just to use as a guide so that I know where to get it straight. And check it out. I have like a white border. So this is one way to use a panel and just use a die cut sentiment. You could add some characters if you wanted to. But it's a nice way to use just to kind of break up and not have a solid panel. So what we did was we removed a portion of the paper, and there's the finished card. So easy. And then now I have a frame to use on another project. Thank you guys for sticking with me today and checking out what Trinity Stamps is going to have available. And I hope to see you in my next video.